They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everyone. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some time out of your life to spend it with us. Hopefully it's going to be worth your while. And I think, yet again, we're going to have another satisfying show, at least for most of you. Season 2, episode 11. It's our 61st show overall. Jose, how time flies.
Yeah.
iHeartRadio podcasting, Amazon podcasts, we're on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube, though we are still videoless at the moment. You can listen to our wonderful voices. Instagram, Twitter, at the BW Pod on Twitter, the Benchwarmers podcast on all other things social media, or just go to thebenchwarmers.com for all of the news notes and articles from yours truly and my fabulous co-host, Jose Ortiz. Coming up a little bit later, we have our weekly football fix. Not a whole lot going on in the world of the NFL, shockingly. It's a down week for them, but we still have a lot to talk about. Jose and I have compiled our lists. We've been going through skill positions and creating our projections for the 2021 season. This week, it's going to be the top 10 NFL tight ends going into next season, so stay tuned for that. A little bit more, some news on the Cowboys joining Hard Knocks, which I am not happy about, but we'll get to that later. Coming up in a little bit, the NBA Finals are set. It's the Bucks versus the Suns. We're going to look back and recap the Clippers-Hawks and then kind of do a little of our world-famous prognostication for the Bucks-Suns NBA Finals starting tomorrow. Jose, and this has been the 4th of July weekend. This is kind of it kind of snuck up on me a little bit, and I was thinking back to this time last year with COVID, but right, it was maybe, 2 months after we started this show. And
sounds right.
It was 4th of July, and the only thing on was, that wasn't like pre-recorded because I think The Last Dance was in there somewhere, but the only live event that was on at the time was the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. And I remember being fascinated by it, but it was indoors, so it just kind of felt a little weirder than even usual. This year, I am not too proud to admit that I watched the Nathan's hot dog eating contest pretty much in its entirety. and I was fascinated. I was absolutely fascinated. The one thing I will say is that ESPN kind of dropped the ball, or they choked, I guess you could say, a little bit on the contest because their feed crapped out like with a minute left. So It was not cool. And so I started doing some research, and I don't know if you've seen the 30 for 30 on the hot dog eating contest. It's about Joey Chestnut and Kobayashi, and it's fantastic. It's really entertaining. So if you haven't seen it, go find it and look at it. But if you are unaware, Joey Chestnut again breaks his own world record, and he in 10 minutes finished 76 hot dogs and won his 14th title in a row. He took the title from Kobayashi in 2007, and he has not relinquished it yet. And I have to tell you, I was reading over. Do you have any idea what the rules are for the competition, Jose? Aside from just eat the hot dogs.
You get one little cup of water. You can't throw up.
Yep.
And I don't know what else there would be.
So here's the list. I don't know why I was fascinated by this, but each contestant has 10 minutes to consume as many hot dogs and buns of uniform weight and size as they can. Contestants provided one plate at a time, each with 5 hot dogs and 5 buns. This I thought was funny. Ketchup and mustard provided, not mandatory. Water provided by event officials. Competitors can bring their own non-alcoholic beverages and will be provided a max of 13 cups. Competitors can dunk hot dog and bun in cups, but not for longer than 5 seconds. I guess that's a little performance enhancing there. Hot dog and bun can be separated, can be broken into parts. Basically, just eat everything you have. No utensils, and don't throw up. Basically, is the last. It's a nicely worded sentence saying just don't throw up. So they take it very seriously. I have to give them credit. It's an event, and the Mike, I think it was Mike Golick Jr. was one of the announcers, and just some they just went so far over the top with announcing it. They were making references to Hemingway and Tom Brady and A-Rod and like all just crazy sports analogies that honestly it was so goofy that it just made me laugh. And I don't know. I had so much fun watching it. I don't know why. And I actually had to go and have a hot dog for the first time in forever. So it did actually make me hungry.
Yeah, I've always wondered, like, at what point in your life where you're just walking around and you're like, I could be a competitive eater, and then how do you train? And that's probably with a 30 for 30.
Yep.
Maybe I need to watch that because I'm just thinking about like just having the calling. Like at one point in time in my life, I was like, I think I could be good at radio, or I could be good at writing. I just don't know what series of events would have to happen where I'd say, you know what, I could win a hot dog eating contest. It's I will say that I would, not that I think I would do well, I would like to participate in like a buffalo wing contest or just a wing eating contest. I love wings.
Sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it's the one thing I don't. Yeah, but I would love to eat a whole bunch of wings from all over the place. So and I will say that I don't think anyone can beat me in a fruit snack eating contest. I will challenge Joey Chestnut right now. You get me a box of Welch's fruit snacks, I will destroy them so fast. Fruit snacks are like drugs to me.
You could argue that they are, but that's a whole other topic for a whole other show. But I mean, the wings. Can you do like super spicy wings though? Because that always seems to be the caveat that they throw at the eaters. That I can't do spicy.
No. Like there's a level, right? Like I can do so. Like I don't need nothing, but I can't. Like if you have to measure it on the Scoville meter, which for those who don't know is what measures hotness of peppers. If you have to measure it on that, I'm probably not going to like it. Like I need to like eating it. I have to enjoy eating it for me to participate in the competition.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, and Joey Chestnut, he does train the 30 for 30, so it's so great to watch. But I don't know if I could guess. I'd have to say like it's like any other talent, I guess you could say, any other thing that you do in life where you happen to do it or show some prominence or promise in an area, and just someone notices and is like, hey, you're pretty good at that. You should do more of, whatever it happens to be, whether it's radio, writing, or eating hot dogs, I guess, or just eating food in general. I'm sure it started very early on, but it's
kind of crazy because I would expect him to be a bigger dude, like a bigger guy. He doesn't see, like, at least last time I saw him, he looked like regular size, like a, average size guy. Yeah. So that's why I'm a little surprised that he can eat so much food, but
I don't know what I could do now. I think earlier in life, I think if there was a Cookie Crisp eating contest, going back to our cereal bracket, I know it didn't win this last year, but it won in years past, and I think that that would have been an event I could have some work for people in. But maybe brownies when I was a kid. My mom's brownies. If she just kept cooking them, I think I would have kept eating them. But hot dogs, I'm not sure. Hot dogs are a barbecue. It's barbecue. It's good. I enjoy them, but I don't know if I could eat 76 of them. Period. Never mind in a 10-minute span. Which also got me thinking. Just as a side note question, I know we're getting a little off topic here. We'll rein it back in a second. What do you, just off the cuff, what most overrated and underrated kind of barbecue cookout foods in your mind?
Okay, so most overrated is probably that's a tough one. I would say drumsticks. So okay. I mean, like, I don't know. I just, first of all, they take forever to cook because they have the bone, and then I don't know. I'm not a huge drumstick on the grill type of thing. I also, I had a steak recently, and it could have been my own fault, but it wasn't the greatest steak in the world, and I was the one who cooked it on the grill, so maybe that's the issue. And underrated, I mean, ribs. I don't think they're underrated though. Like I can't really think of an underrated food. That's a tough one.
Ribs are my overrated food.
Oh, okay, there we go.
And that's because I just started thinking. I don't know. Don't ask me. I think about the craziest stuff when I'm not doing anything. And overrated ribs are, now. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to get like Memphis listeners and I don't know who else. Houston. Who else is good? Kansas City. I don't want to get them all mad, but it just for the amount of time, preparation, and work that goes into them, I just don't think that it's worth all of the effort. And maybe that's part of the charm. When they're good, they're great, but for all the work, it just seems like it's a slow payoff, and it's really messy.
Oh, well, I want to just add a caveat. I was thinking about just showing up and eating, right? I wasn't thinking about actually making the ribs, right?
Okay.
So yeah, so like I was just, hey, just show up, eat the food, and that's fine. Like I'm not a huge chicken person except for wings with the barbecue, but if somebody has ribs, I mean, yeah, I've actually never made ribs myself on a barbecue, on a grill. I've always just eaten other people's. So.
As far as underrated, I think the most underrated food you find at a barbecue is corn on the cob.
Oh, interesting.
Corn on the cob is the most simple. I had some yesterday. I went to my parents', big barbecue, cookout, whatever. Just corn on the cob, little salt, little butter. Unbelievable. I was like, wow, this is amazing. But
agreed. I love corn on the cob.
Just so simple.
Grilled corn on the cob is great.
You can go back to any time in history basically and have it, so you're fine. So anyway, okay. Happy 4th of July, all of that. Also, this last week, just to kind of get back on track with sports, I mean, we can touch on this. I don't think either of us really has too much to say about this other than about time, but the Supreme Court ruled at the NCAA they're allowing college athletes to profit from their name, image, and likeness officially, and I think as of July 1st, it's like National Name, Image, and Likeness Day. I think it's been on social media. This, I mean, I don't know what to say about this. The good thing is that I think it's long overdue. I think that's pretty obvious. Like kids have been being paid under the table forever. But thinking about it more over the course of the last few days, I will say that I'm very interested to see all of the unintended consequences that come from this. Because there's going to be a lot of, you start getting big money involved, and there's going to be jealousy issues. Like, I mean, if you go back to take your pick of somebody in the past, Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow makes $1 billion in college if he's able to profit from his name, image, and likeness with the fan base he had. But then, what I really wonder is on a team like that, does I mean, I guess bad example, but Aaron Hernandez on that team, or Chris Leak, or whoever else was on that Florida team, like, do they start getting jealous of Tim, or the offensive line? Prime example, like, hey, this guy wouldn't be squat without us, and no one's giving us anything. Well, so I wonder, about that, and then tax repercussions. There's just so many things here. Like, agents are going to be it's like the Wild West right now, with just agents signing everybody and deals everywhere. So I'm very curious to see what happens in the next few months with all of this.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a ton of unintended consequences. As far as jealousy, I mean, was Scottie Pippen jealous of Michael Jordan? Probably. Like, listen, like, I'm a better player. I'm in a more important position. What do you want? Is Aaron Rodgers' offensive lineman jealous of him? Like, he's the quarterback. Can you play quarterback? No. Well, then you don't get paid as much as a quarterback. It's just it is what it is. As you said, it's about time. It's really such a common sense thing. If you really think about it, it's like, so the NCAA was saying, up until now, the NCAA is saying, oh yeah, you can't, if somebody wants your autograph, you can't charge them. You can't make any money off of your own name. Only we can make money off of you. I mean, come on. What are you talking about? You want to make money off of your own work that you're doing? No. We make money off of you. You do what we tell you to do. That's essentially what the NCAA was saying for the last 50 years or something like that. So I mean, it's great. I think the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that for most of these athletes, this is the most valuable their name is ever going to be.
Yep.
Whether you're an offensive lineman in Florida or wherever, most of these players are not going pro. So this is about
even
as
some
valuable.
Some of the ones that are. I mean, look at Johnny Manziel could have
Tim
made
Tebow.
Tim Tebow, Christian Leitner in college.
Yeah,
I mean, just think how popular and how much money they would have made. And then, I mean, Christian Leitner could have maybe broke
Matt
even.
Liner's another one.
Matt Liner, yeah. Reggie Bush. Bush would have been. Speaking of Reggie Bush, actually. Related to this, on the heels of this news, I guess Reggie Bush announced that he would like his Heisman Trophy back since it was taken away because of the whole he took money for a house for his mom or something back in whatever year that was, several years ago. And so they, USC got their title vacated. Reggie Bush got his Heisman taken away. And, we talked about this a little earlier in the week when this story came out. This is, with the understanding that this is apples to oranges. Okay, Reggie Bush got punished. Reggie Bush's team got punished. He personally got his Heisman taken away from him because of something that had absolutely, unequivocally nothing to do with how USC played on the field. Nothing whatsoever. He wasn't on PEDs. He didn't pay off the refs. He wasn't bribing anybody. He didn't throw the game. Nothing whatsoever involved with wins or losses. And yet he gets his Heisman taken away. But a guy like O.J. Simpson, who allegedly murdered 2 people, doesn't get his Heisman taken away. Now, I understand it was way after the fact, but I think the severity of the crime far outweighs the proximity to when it actually happened. And yet somehow OJ still had, well, I don't know if he still has his Heisman because I think it got stolen in Vegas, but he should still have his Heisman if he hadn't misplaced it or hadn't it stolen. But it just made me laugh. I'm like, give Reggie Bush back his Heisman. Like, come on, stop it. He still did what he did on the field. Like, just knock it off.
I hate any league does the vacating of championships unless it was like if Major League Baseball wanted to go and vacate the Astros, I would have been okay with that just because, cheating did happen or whatever the case may be. But if it's not on the field cheating, whatever and however you want to describe that, there's all sorts of different ways that people cheat. If it's not on the field cheating, why are you taking away? So I hope that Reggie Bush is reinstated into the NCAA and then given his Heisman Trophy back.
Yeah, I do too. So go Reg. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back in a little bit. Coming up, we have our football fix, Cowboys on Hard Knocks. That's going to be a source of entertainment, good, bad, or ugly. We have our top 10 NFL tight ends going into next season that we amassed over the course of this last week, so stay tuned for that. But coming up next, NBA Finals are here, and it's just like everybody predicted, the Bucks and the Suns. So we're going to talk about how both of those teams got here and what to look forward to in the finals coming up after this. So stick around. This is the Benchwarmers Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you think or know you had COVID-19, you can be around others after 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and after 24 hours with no fever without fever-reducing medication, and after other symptoms have improved. If you have tested positive for COVID-19 and you had no symptoms, you can be around others 10 days after you got tested for COVID-19. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers Podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz, and this is still the Benchwarmers Podcast. Hopefully, you're following along on Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio Podcasts. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram at the Benchwarmers Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or just go to thebenchwarmers.com and find access to us there, along with everywhere else you get your podcasts. Benchwarmers with a Z. Talked about some 4th of July events, the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest that I was inexplicably awestruck by this year for some reason. The NCAA ruling that college athletes can profit from their name, image, and likeness. Reggie Bush wants his Heisman back, and we think he should get it. Coming up, we're going to touch on our football fix. We have Cowboys on Hard Knocks, some other news and notes, as well as our top 10 tight ends moving into next season. But right now, thankfully, the NBA Finals are here, and it's I wonder. I meant to look up what the odds were that the Suns were going to make the Finals before the season started. I forgot to do that, and I meant to do it, but I'm sure that they were pretty long odds. So I'm sure a few people made quite a bit of money. When we last met, Jose, we were still waiting for. It looked like Phoenix was about to close out the Clippers, which they did, and then I think the Bucks-Hawks was a little more competitive, and obviously the Milwaukee went on to win. They actually both won 4-2, but it felt like Phoenix's 4-2 was a lot easier, maybe because it happened sooner, but it just seemed like Milwaukee's was a lot more harder fought, maybe because of the injuries.
Yeah, I completely. It did feel. Yeah, it just felt different. Also, I think the Suns went up 3-1, and so you get that game 5 win. It's just like, okay, well now it's 3-2. It just, and then game 6 wasn't particularly close with the Suns and the Clippers either. Just to quickly answer your question, the Phoenix Suns were. I'm not really good with they were plus 4,000, 51 over to 21. I'm not really sure what that means, but they were ranked 14th, so
yeah.
they were basically middle of the pack. So I'm not sure that if I put $100, does that mean I would get 40,000? Like, I'm not sure how that works, but either way, they weren't a favorite, to say the least. The Clippers, listen, the Clippers were without their best player and one of the NBA's best players in Kawhi Leonard, and we saw Paul George step up and play better than I expected, certainly, but he's not the type of player who can be the best player on a championship team. One of the feelings I had when watching the team, it was that they needed more scoring help from the bench. It felt like guys had to get lucky or just get hot, and they didn't really have a consistent, well, I guess second or third option. And reminded me of mid-season when they decided to trade for Rajon Rondo, and they got rid of Lou Williams, who actually played well for the Atlanta Hawks this postseason. I wonder if things would have been different if Lou Williams was at least, maybe not. They probably still lose the series, but you lost a proven scorer and Lou Williams, and I'm not sure what Rajon Rondo really brought back. If they bring everyone back next year, assuming Kawhi comes back and everyone and Paul George and everyone's back, they need to find a better third and fourth scoring option if they want to advance. You just need more people. You need more people who can score. And I think it's fair to say the Hawks exceeded expectations. No one had them picked to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm trying to look at what the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, they were below the Phoenix Suns by 3. They had plus 10,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, Trae Young, NBA's newest all-star superstar, you can expect him to keep getting better and better. And I would advise him and his teammates. Not that I'm an NBA coach, so what do I know? But maybe not to always rely on a three-point shot so much. I feel like they kind of start falling in love with themselves. Oh, I can hit anything from anywhere, and the next thing you know, you're 0 for 6, 0 for 7. And I think, especially Trae Young, he's got such a good inside game. It's maybe the best finger roll floater in the game at all from anyone. So I just think they also need another star to pair with Trae if they want to take the next step. But congratulations, I thought they did really, really well. I'm very impressed with what the Hawks did. I think the Clippers are probably a little disappointed, but when you're missing your best player, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Clippers is it feels like a letdown. But again, you take the best player off any team, and I mean, you're probably not going to win. It's just the fact of the matter. I mean, maybe Brooklyn could have done it, but I don't know if without Kevin Durant, I don't know if James Harden and Kyrie Irving could have really pulled that out. And Paul George, I have to give him credit to some extent. He averaged 28.7 points a game, 10.5 rebounds, and 5.5 assists for the series. So he stepped up. I have to give him credit. It felt like that last game, I guess Phoenix was just on a mission, but they just kind of, I mean, it was, I think I'm trying to do it. Yeah, it was the most lopsided win in the series, 130 to 103. It just, and not for nothing, but Patrick Beverley, grow up.
Yeah.
What
was that?
I saw Chris Paul said something to him, but of all people in the league, one of the people who chirps the most is Patrick Beverley. So you can't be surprised if you've been chirping your entire career that someone, when they're whooping your ass, goes, "Hey man, sucker," whatever he said. And then to push a guy in the back when he's not looking, like, I don't mind getting his face if he makes you angry, get in his face, but don't push him in the back like a coward. That was just so pathetic. Like, come on, man, you instigate this. He was, after seeing him mock Chris Paul when Chris Paul's legs went out from under him, and he was still laying on the ground. I think it was game 5. Or game 4. It was one of the previous games, but Patrick Beverley's mocking Chris Paul while Chris Paul's still writhing in pain on the ground. It just cheapens the entire thing. It just makes me look at the Clippers and just want them to lose.
Yeah, I certainly agree with everything you just said there about Patrick Beverley. I forgot about that play. It was really just I'm sure we've seen worse plays, and maybe the recency effect is like it's getting to me. But I was like, that's got to be one of the cheapest plays I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It just you got beat, schooled this entire series. You talk trash all the time. I didn't even see Chris Paul say anything. Maybe he mentioned that I didn't see him say anything.
He did. You could see when he was walking by. You could see he only said something real short, real quick. Yeah. But obviously, whatever he said hit home. So
it's like when I saw it, I was like, "What are you doing?" And it was really, I think the point that you're making is it was a weak way to go out in Game 6, right? It was just punctuated by the push in the back, just the entire the performance of the Clippers in that game was just a weak way to go out, certainly.
Yeah, that's kind of how it felt. It felt like Game 7 last year with against the Nuggets when they just kind of gave up. It just felt like they didn't even show up to that game and just kind of mailed it in. It just seemed like they had given up before the game was even over. And again, no Kawhi Leonard, it's hard to expect them to do much. And in terms of if you're just grading the Clippers on the Clippers, this was the most successful season in Clippers history.
Fair enough.
They've never made the conference finals before. So you can't say it's a failure, especially with Kawhi, you could say it's a disappointment. With Kawhi, I think you have to say it was a success.
Do you think that the Suns win this series if Kawhi's out there? Like if everyone's at full strength, do you think the Suns still win?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't think so. I think Kawhi playoff, I know playoff P is the thing, but playoff Kawhi at full strength is one of the better players in the NBA. I mean, that's not arguable.
Yeah. But no, I completely agree. I don't. The only thing that would make me wonder is, the performance we saw from Paul George in this series was in part because Kawhi Leonard wasn't there.
Yep.
So I guess my point is, if Kawhi Leonard is there, does Paul George turn back into Pandemic P?
Robin, instead of Batman.
Yeah. So that's
I don't know. I mean, that's the other thing with that. Looking forward, I mean, who knows what's going to happen to Kawhi? There's rumors that he might want out of LA, even though he moved heaven and earth to get there and to get Paul George there. This health issue, this knee thing is not going away. It's not like it's going to get better. I mean, it might get better short term, but I mean, over the course of his career, it's not going to go away completely. So how, Ty Lue or whoever happens to be coaching him manages that is going to be very interesting because, while load management, I think by and large is a crock, it does seem like Kawhi, who was the harbinger of load management, does have a legitimate argument for why he needs to pace himself throughout the course of the season because of exactly what just happened.
Yeah, and honestly, injuries are just really looming over this entire postseason as we head into looking at the Suns and the Bucks in the finals. We might not get Giannis healthy, at least. Well, certainly he won't be 100%, but he might not. We don't even know he's going to be there for Game 1. There's not even really any guarantee that he plays at all in the entire NBA Finals. What are your initial thoughts on the Suns and the Bucks right now?
Well, as far as just to recap the Bucks Hawks, I mean, I think it was a valiant effort by Trae Young. You covered most of it, but I think valiant effort. He still averaged 28 points a game, even though he was, he barely was able to play in that last game. Just kind of limping around. It was interesting to see, though. You talk about no Giannis, and this is something I noticed against the Hawks that I would also project into the game against, the finals game against the Phoenix Suns. It seems like without Giannis, I mean, we just talked about Kawhi not being there and Paul George stepping up. And I'm not going to say that the Bucks are better without Giannis. That's stupid. But the Bucks, they looked more proficient, I guess, in a way. Like Chris Middleton stepped up, Drew Holiday stepped up, Brook Lopez stepped up, and I don't know if that's going to happen every time Giannis isn't there, but it just seems like if Middleton plays well, this team wins, and I hope that if they get Giannis back, that these guys can remember how they were doing and just make it work. I mean, just watching Brook Lopez play sort of more of a low post game like he should because he's the biggest guy on the court instead of standing at the top of the key to stretch the floor and taking these. I mean, he's not a bad 3-point shooter, but you're kind of wasting your body if you're just at the top of the key as a 7-footer taking jump shots. go down low and dominate, especially against a team like the Hawks, who are so tiny. I hope that they keep that game plan in mind when they play the Suns.
Yeah, I agree that the Bucks played with a higher level of efficiency and a higher level of urgency. It felt like they just, hey, we have no margin for error here. We need to be playing our best basketball with Giannis out. Now they should keep that mentality as they head into the series with the Suns. I still look at the Suns. I look at the Suns as like I even if Giannis was healthy, I look at the Suns as the best team in the NBA, at least best team in this series to win the finals. Their offensive execution has just been spectacular this postseason. You and I have talked a lot off air, on air, about teams kind of falling in love with a three-pointer, especially following Golden State's run. I just don't see the Suns doing that. It feels like Chris Paul handles the ball, finds the open guy. They have Ayton down low. They have Devin Booker who can create his own shot. And then Chris Paul finds guys in really great spots. They don't really at least from what I'm watching, it feels like the three-point shooting is more natural and not being forced, not just shooting it up just to show, well, I'm here, may as well shoot it. Seems like they're looking for the best play. Giannis is not healthy. I think the Bucks get a little too three-point happy. And if those threes aren't falling, I just don't see them having much of a chance. To me, when I'm looking at this series, I've got the Suns definitely, but I'm struggling with saying if I want to do it in 5 or in 6, because I think they're that much better than the Bucks right now.
I mean, it depends on Giannis's health. I mean, it really does, and that's such a crucial component, obviously. But keep in mind, I mean, Devin Booker does have a broken nose, I think. So
yeah,
he didn't seem like he was right after that little Patrick Beverley incident again. Mm-hmm. And I hope that obviously I hope that Giannis plays just because I want to see them at full strength. But I think the matchup between Giannis and DeAndre Ayton would be unbelievable because they're both. I mean, Giannis is bigger and stronger, but Ayton is such a great jumper. He's so agile. He's so quick that I think those two going back to back and head to head is going to be really interesting. Drew Holiday versus Chris Paul. I mean, I think Chris Paul gets the better of that, but Drew Holiday is a pretty good defender, and he's certainly quicker than Chris Paul. But the one thing, just to touch on what you said, I hope that we're starting to see this phase out of just the 3-point jacking up strategy, where it's a bigger payoff, but it's a higher risk. It doesn't make sense. And I get the analytics and everything, but the one thing that analytics doesn't do and doesn't account for and can't account for is when a guy gets into rhythm. There's no stat for that. And you watch guys like Kevin Durant and Chris Paul, more specifically, just more recently, I should say, those little foul line jump shots, he just hits one, then he hits another one, then he hits another one, then he just gets more and more. You could see him getting more confident, and it turns into just automatic. And you can't, the chances of those shots going in are so far surpassed, going into catch-up mode and trying to throw up three-pointers that there's no stat for that. And I think that it's nice to see just a basic mid-range jump shot go in instead of just some 30-foot clanking off the rim and there's just no play being made. It's nice to see it.
And the other thing to add to that the analytics probably don't account for is when you miss those shots, right? You miss that three-pointer. Usually it's a long rebound, and now the fast break has started on the other end, right? You're off to the races. Now it's a long rebound. Everyone's down the court, and your defense doesn't have a chance to get set. Whereas if you just take a better 2-point, a good 2-point shot, one, you have a better chance of making it, but two, you don't usually get that long rebound. It usually goes straight up, and then your defense gets a chance to get back and get set, which is like I said, the Suns just playing really efficient ball, and I think that's what we're seeing them do. Kind of the things that we're talking about there.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to see what happens with, like, who does Jay Crowder play against? Does he? Just some of the matchups are just so fascinating. Like, is it Devin Booker gonna be on Chris Middleton? Like those guys seem like they might be at each other a little bit. I'm very curious to see how this plays out. And as far as picking, this is really difficult because I don't know if I have to bank on the fact that Giannis probably isn't going to be. He's definitely not going to be at full strength. But I'm going to say Phoenix in 6.
So I'm taking the Suns in 5.
Okay. Yeah, I think if Giannis was 100%, this would be almost impossible to choose. I think. I think I'd probably pick the Bucks in 7 if Giannis was healthy, but.
It's kind of heartbreaking. I know we're about to move on. It's just heartbreaking with Giannis having to, having worked so hard to try and get to the finals and break through. Yeah. And now he's finally here, and it's like, oh, I'm injured and I'm not going to be able to play.
Well, what's going to be even worse is if he doesn't play and they win.
Well, yeah.
Carson Wentz all over again. I mean,
that's true.
That might be even worse than losing. Yeah. At least if they lose, it's like, well, we did need the big guy. If they win, that's going to get messy.
That's a good point. Let's. Although I think I'd still rather win than lose. Like I'd still rather get the ring because it's going to be the Nets are going to be back to full strength most likely next year. So this road to the NBA Finals is not going to be as. I don't want to say they didn't work hard, but having only one of 3 stars for the Nets makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a great series no matter what happens. So looking forward to it. But all right, we're going to keep an eye on that. The series is going to still be going by the time we do our next show. So we'll check in and see where we're at and how our predictions are looking at that point next week. But for now, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and it's time for our football fix. So stick around. We'll be right back. This is the Benchwarmers Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're sick with COVID-19 or think you might have it, take steps to help protect other people from getting sick. Stay home except to get medical care. Call the doctor before visiting. Separate yourself from others who live with you. Wear a cloth face covering to protect others. Cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue and clean your hands right away. Avoid sharing items with other people in your home. This includes things like towels and bedding. Be sure dishes are washed in hot water or the dishwasher before anyone else uses them. Stay aware of how you feel. If you start to have difficulty breathing or if you're worried about your health, call your doctor. For more tips, visit cdc.gov.
And now back to the Benchwarmers Podcast with Lou and Jose.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz, and this is the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow us along iHeartRadio, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is Season 2, Episode 11. Go to thebenchwarmers.com, Benchwarmers with a Z, and you can find all of our shows links to all of our shows from the last 60 or so of them that there are out there. Shows flying by. 4th of July, we talked about the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, the Supreme Court ruling that the college athletes can profit from their name, image, and likeness. Just talk some NBA Finals. We're going to look forward to that. But now it's time for our football fix every week, and we're counting down. We're getting real close to actual football, and it's mini camp and preseason coming up real soon. And for now, we have to settle on a couple other things. We have our top 10 NFL tight ends, but a couple news and notes things. These I'll just list off these, and you tell me. Josh Gordon apparently applied for reinstatement. I'm going to just phrase it this way. Over under, if he gets it, over under 4 games before he's suspended again.
I'm gonna give him over just because I have to, I gotta believe. I want to be positive. So I'm gonna say
5
over.
games. Okay.
Yeah, 5 games. So 5, 6 games. I want to be positive, so I'm gonna say over.
All right. Trevor Lawrence signed. This is a little less exciting now that the slotted contracts for rookies exist. But Trevor Lawrence signed a $36.8 million deal with the Jaguars. Not surprising. It's just is what it is. Yeah. The Jaguars turned down, actually, they declined to be on Hard Knocks, and that's a team's right if they have a rookie head coach, obviously to minimize distractions for a new team. But one team that is not afraid of distractions and is a living, breathing, walking distraction is the Dallas Cowboys, who are going to be featured for the 3rd time on Hard Knocks in its 20th anniversary season. Apparently, Micah Parsons is going to be the star of the show, from what I've been reading. Their number 1 draft pick, defensive. He's a linebacker out of Penn State. I think that this is a horrible idea. I think the Cowboys, the last thing they need is more coverage and more distractions. I'm gonna make a prediction. This is going to be Mike McCarthy's last year as a head coach in Dallas.
That's a pretty strong prediction, and it's hard to argue based on what we saw last year. I'm gonna say as a 49ers fan, we've never been on Hard Knocks before, and I would love to see the 49ers on Hard Knocks. But I also do agree with what you're saying about the Cowboys in the sense that this is a team with, the last 2 years, unquestionably has fallen well below expectations.
Yep.
2 years ago, there were a number of people you could point to: Dak, the defense, the coaching, whatever. Last year, there were a bunch of injuries, so maybe you give them a pass a little bit. But as a team that's coming in, they've paid everyone. They're obviously all in to win a championship. Haven't been able to really get a lot of momentum going in that direction. They really need to have more of a bunker mentality where, hey, let's lock in, let's hunker down, and let's just get to work. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's not try and pose for the cameras and get attention on me here and there. Let's just get to work on our football game. And the fact that up until you told me, I thought that if the NFL just picked you, that was it. You had to be on. But now to know that they could have declined, to me, the Cowboys don't need any more attention. They're already getting a ton of attention. They're already, maybe they're not America's team anymore, but everyone knows about the Cowboys. Everyone knows about Jerry Jones. People are going to be following them regardless. I don't think this moves the meter. Like, why do you need this? You just don't need this at all.
No, you don't. And it's, again, I think you're right. The Cowboys over the last, 10, 15 years have been just the most overhyped, overplayed, overpromised, under-delivering team that we've seen in a long time. I mean, they just, the expectations are sky high and the payoff is in the basement. And that's coming from someone who grew up a Cowboys fan. And I absolutely despise it. I hate being, the focal point of every media outlet. I want to be the underdog. I want to sneak up on people. And the Cowboy, you can't sneak up on anybody. Jerry Jones, he's a media whore. He wants to be at the center of the universe all the time. And I guess maybe if I was a tycoon Texas billionaire, I would want to be too. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. And Mike McCarthy, after last season, I get it. Dak was hurt, whatever. But this team still had plenty of talent on both sides of the ball, and they just pooped the bed completely. I mean, they just looked pathetic in a division where it was up for grabs. I mean, they should have, even with Andy Dalton and whoever else at quarterback, they still should have been competitive for a playoff spot. And the reason I say that Mike McCarthy, this is the last year, is because McCarthy, he didn't end well in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers had some very choice things to say about him that were not flattering at all. And then last year, I mean, yes, he was hampered by, his starting quarterback going down. But look at Kyle Shanahan when Jimmy Garoppolo went down. They still were, they weren't great, but they were respectable. And Mike McCarthy, there was rumors. Do you remember last season when he was like doing his Gallagher impersonation for the team and smashing watermelons? Like, if he does remember that. Yes, he was smashing watermelons pregame as to get the team all hyped up. From Gallagher in the 80s.
Okay.
If that happens on Hard Knocks, this team is just going to be, they're already a lightning rod, but now they're just going to be, I don't even know what the next step beyond that is. They're so polarizing as it is. I think more attention is not going to, there's nothing good that's going to come out of this. Nothing.
Yeah, I think that's the bottom line where if you're an owner, team, you're a front office guy, your job is to be, anything you do needs to be with the mind of putting your team in a better position to succeed. There's nothing about this that will help the Cowboys in any way whatsoever.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to transition over to NFL tight ends. We've been doing a list every week of skill positions. We have quarterbacks, we have running backs, we have wide receivers. And basically, Jose makes his top whatever we decide, 10, 15, 20, whatever. I make mine, and then we kind of do an aggregate average score of each player, and then that's how we come up with our official show rankings. So for this week, we decided to do tight ends. We only picked top 10 because, quite honestly, there's not a lot of good tight ends. There's a couple really good ones, and then there's a bunch of like question marks.
Yep.
And so I guess I'll run down the list. I mean, a lot of these shouldn't be surprising, but we can kind of go on some of our differences here in a second. But in order, number 1, Travis Kelce, not surprising. Number 2, Darren Waller. Number 3, George Kittle. Number 4, Mark Andrews. Number 5, interestingly enough, Kyle Pitts, the unproven Kyle Pitts. Number 6, Noah Fant. Number 7, Mike Gesicki from the Dolphins. Number 8, TJ Hawkinson. Number 9, Dallas Goedert. And number 10, the one and only Rob Gronkowski. And so those are Kelce, Waller, Kittle, Andrews, Pitts, Fant, Gesicki, Hawkinson, Goddard, Gronkowski. Now, Jose, we had a pretty diverse group. Your list and my list did not have. We basically had the top 4 the same, and then after that, it kind of just went off the rails a little bit.
That's the issue with the tight end, that there's, there's a huge tier where, like, if we were really doing this, there should be like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there should be blank spots in like 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you pick up the list at 9, because that's the gap. Yeah. Now we both neither of us are college football experts, though I have vowed to watch more college football this season coming. Yep. Kyle Pitts, we have him at 5. Neither of us are really, this is just based on hype, highlights we've seen, and then also just the lack of other really great tight ends behind him. So I thought that was kind of interesting that we have him basically as a top 5 tight end without having playing a snap. But it's hard to argue, because when I was going down the list, I was like Mike Gesicki, he can't be a top 10 tight end. And then I'm doing the list, I'm like, oh, he definitely can be a top 10 tight end. And so there's just a lot of players like that where there's just they're just not great, but there's just such a lack of talent at the position that they're in the top 10 anyway.
Yeah, one of the biggest differences is actually, I was expecting this to be the other way around, but as you not so subtly mentioned before the show, one of my 6th overall tight end was Robert Tonyan of the Green Bay Packers, who, last year, admittedly, I used him as a scapegoat for every joke the Packers I could think of. And I thought that he was not good, just put it mildly. And I'm here to tell you that I was wrong. And I think that, combined with the fact that the Packers did not do anything to help add anything to that offense in the offseason for Aaron Rodgers, that I think Robert Tonyan, his production is going to be I think it's going to be pretty good. I think he led the league. I know he at least led all tight ends in touchdowns last year, but.
Yeah, I would say Robert Tonyan is a guy that maybe I overlooked as I'm looking at my list here. I think that I could have. I don't think I would have put him in my top 10, but I think I could have put him. So I have Rob Gronkowski at 11, and I had Jonnu Smith at 12. I think that maybe I could have put Tonyan somewhere in that area because I don't think that he's good. Not to say he's bad. I just think you have Devontae Adams, you have Aaron Rodgers, you have Aaron Jones. There's just not enough defensive attention to go around to everyone. And he does a good job of maximizing the opportunities he's given. So yeah, Robert Tonyan, he absolutely belongs at least in the discussion. And I feel bad for leaving him off the list, but there's just such a nebulous of tight end talent once you get outside the top 5.
Yeah, guys that I listed that didn't even make your list. I had Tonyan was one. Evan Ingram made your list, but he was way lower than I had him. He was about 5 spots lower. I had Jared Cook, Irv Smith, and Gerald Everett, and none of those guys were even mentioned, which I was a little surprised by. I think you had Hunter Henry and Giannis Smith, who the reason I didn't include them on my list is because I felt like they were going to cannibalize each other to the point where neither one of them was going to be especially productive.
Well, I was just kind of going off of a straight talent thing. It's hard to, I wasn't quite going off of what I think they're actually going to produce in this season. I was more looking at just, from a straight talent. And while Evan Ingram, obviously first round pick, he has talent. We haven't seen it really manifest itself over a full season. Irv Smith Jr., I mean, he's literally just getting a starting job now. So it's hard for me to really roll with him. And then even from a productivity standpoint, I don't think there's going to be a lot, with Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and Dalvin Cook. I'm not sure what's left for Irv Smith Jr. Jared Cook was the guy I thought about. I think that I thought about putting him in the list, but I don't know. I'm not sure if I really think he's that good anymore. So, and then what I thought was weird is that you had T.J. Hawkinson down all the way at 14, and I had T.J. Hawkinson at 5, and so that's a huge gap. And your explanation was about Jared Goff and kind of basically lack of confidence in Jared Goff.
Yeah, just the Detroit snake bite.
Yeah, and I just thought, I was like, Jared Goff is like, basically what he does is he throws short, like what he would do with Cooper Kupp, just short passes to Cooper Kupp. I could see T.J. Hawkinson becoming his new Cooper Kupp.
Maybe, I guess, but I mean, wasn't T.J. Hawkinson, was he was always on, he's been on Detroit.
Yeah, this is his third year. He's going into his third season. His first year was a bit of a disappointment. Last year he bounced back.
He was a Pro Bowler last year.
Yeah, last year he bounced back. And if you look at the Detroit Lions receiving options, who's the number one receiver for the Detroit Lions?
Calvin Johnson.
I think it's Quintez Cephas or Amon-Ra St. Brown, who hasn't played yet. So as far as just...
Isn't Geronimo Allison's on that team too?
Oh my God, I didn't know he was there, but goodness. Yeah. Okay. There's just, as far as just like who are you throwing the ball to, I just feel like T.J. Hawkinson's probably going to be the number one option.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. I just don't think that there's going to be a lot of passes for scores, or I don't believe in Jared Goff. I really think that he got. I mean, the Lions are just so bad year after year that it's just so hard to. It's hard to think that anybody on a team is going to be productive at all. And I know that, maybe on a different team, T.J. Hawkinson does better, but he is where he is.
Yep. I mean, other than that, I mean, I guess my only question is, do you think, Kelsey, number one, has basically been the number one tight end for the last, 5 years now? Is there any chance that someone overtakes him this season? Or does his run of dominance continue?
Well, if Kittle can stay healthy,
yeah,
I think he can put up bigger numbers. I mean, he's a more explosive, he's a more powerful runner. I don't know if he's more explosive, but Kelsey's more wide receiver-esque than George Kittle is. George Kittle is like a dump truck. Darren Waller is unbelievable. I mean, in terms of skill set, I mean, Darren Waller has what it takes to be, the Calvin Johnson of tight ends. I mean, he's just bigger, stronger, and faster than anybody who's covering him. But, he's hampered by Derek Carr and being on a subpar team, basically.
Can't wait till we get into our division breakdowns in the coming weeks. It's going to be so fun when we can start really getting into these teams. Yeah, Travis Kelce happens to be overly super talented, has the best quarterback in the game, and also has Tyreek Hill on the same field. Yeah. So teams have to get worried about him too. It's just pick your poison. It's just a perfect storm for him.
Yeah, and I think Mark Andrews is going to be great. I think he's going to catch 10 plus touchdowns again, and that's about it. Because who does Lamar Jackson have to throw to really? I mean, he's got a couple other options, but it's been proven for the last couple of years now that Andrews is by far and away his favorite target, especially in the red zone.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see if they're rumored to have working with him on throwing downfield more. So they did draft Rashad Bateman in the first round and still have Marquise Brown. And so we'll see. Because if they're just going to keep hitting Mark Andrews, we're probably going to see the same thing that we saw last year, a little bit of a limited offense.
Yeah, and Gronkowski made the list, I think, because not because of his overall production, but I think situationally he's still a matchup nightmare. Well,
he's still a good, if you throw the ball to him in the end zone, he's going to catch it.
Situationally,
maybe he's not going to burn you down the field, but he's a great red zone option, and he's got a great quarterback. It's tough to argue with it.
Yeah. All right, so that's our list. So once again, Kelsey, Waller, Kittles, Andrews, Pitts, Fant, Gesicki, Hawkinson, Goddard, Gronkowski. You can find that list along with all of our other skill position lists thus far on the benchwarmers.com. Benchwarmers with a Z. That's our fun little webpage, homepage, website, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what they're called now. I think, that's going to do it. So for Jose Ortiz, I am Lou Ruggieri, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.